If you were the one calming your parents down instead of the other way around, if you learned to read the tension in a room before you learned to read a book, if you were praised for being so mature when really you were just scared. This video is about what that silence taught you and why right now as an adult you're still doing it with your partner, your friends, your boss, without even realizing it. Picture a child, maybe 6, maybe 9 years old, small enough to still need someone to take care of them. But in this house, the roles got flipped. Maybe it was a parent who drank too much and someone had to make sure dinner still happened. Maybe it was a mother who cried in the kitchen at night and the child learned to sit beside her, quiet, offering a hand to hold. Maybe it was a father who exploded over nothing and the child became an expert at predicting the storm before it hit. This child didn't have a name for what they were doing, they just did it. Because someone had to, and it was never going to be the adults. Psychologists call this parentification. It's what happens when a child is forced, usually without anyone saying it out loud, to take on responsibilities that belong to a parent. There's the practical kind. The child who pays bills, cooks meals, raises younger siblings because the adults can't or won't. And there's the emotional kind, the child who becomes the therapist, the one their mother vents to, the one who manages a parent's sadness long before they understand their own. Both share the same quiet lesson: your needs come second, or they don't come at all, not if someone else's crisis is always louder. And here's what explains so much of what comes later. This child doesn't just lose a normal childhood, they lose the experience of being cared for. They only learn what it feels like to do the caring. So what happens when that child grows up? They become extremely competent. The friend everyone calls first in a crisis. The employee handed the impossible project because they'll figure it out. The partner who remembers everyone's stress level except their own because they've stopped being able to name it. But underneath that competence is a nervous system that never learned how to rest. Resting feels dangerous. If they stop managing everyone's emotions, some old buried part of them believes something bad will happen. Someone will fall apart, someone will leave, and if no one needs them, who are they exactly? This is why so many of these adults struggle to receive. Someone offers them help and their whole body tenses. It feels unfamiliar, almost unbearable, not because they don't want it, but because they never learned its shape. You can see this everywhere once you know what to look for. The woman who becomes the unofficial therapist of every friend group, always available at 2 a.m. for someone else's breakdown, never once mentioning her own. When someone finally asks, "But how are you doing?" she blanks. No one's asked her that in a way that expected a real answer. The man who can't relax on vacation, checking his phone every 10 minutes, feeling a low hum of guilt every time he's simply enjoying something. Somewhere in him is a child who learned that relaxing meant someone else was left unprotected. The person who keeps choosing partners who need fixing, not because they love chaos, but because chaos is the only emotional language they were ever fluent in. Calm, stable love can feel almost suspicious to a nervous system raised on crisis. Here's the twist most people miss. These skills were never a flaw. They were a brilliant survival response. That hyper-attentiveness to others' emotions in a healthier context becomes deep empathy. That instinct to fix problems early becomes real leadership. The problem was never the skill. The problem is that it was demanded too early and it's still running on autopilot decades later in situations that don't need it anymore. The house isn't burning down, but the alarm never got turned off. Healing isn't about becoming someone new. It's about asking a different question than the one this child was trained to ask. Not, what does everyone else need from me, but what do I need and am I allowed to ask for it? If any of this felt familiar, know this. You didn't just survive a difficult childhood. You built a skill set most people never have to develop. That's real. That matters. But you're also allowed to put some of it down. You're allowed to need something and say so without earning it first. The child who took care of everyone deserves finally to be taken care of. And that starts with one small radical act, letting someone try.